Good evening, Wakefield, and welcome to the October 14th, 2021 Town Council meeting. I hereby call this meeting to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 3, we have everyone in attendance tonight, except, of course, our colleague Peter May, who I'm reminded as we were doing the Pledge of Allegiance actually started that very important tradition here for the Town Council. We're going to have a few words about him in a moment. Sherry, let's move to item 4, public engagement.
Yes, we do have one person on. He is on. Jesus, you just need to unmute.
Okay, I'm here.
Okay. You can just introduce yourself and give your address, and then please proceed. You have 3 minutes to offer some comments.
Can you see me?
We can't see you,
No,
but we can hear you.
Jesus, can you hear us? Jesus?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
We can
Oh,
hear
and
you.
now we can see you.
All right. Thank you.
So just please introduce yourself and
How's
give your address.
Oh, yeah, sure. My name is Jesus Vasquez. My address is 175 North Ave in Wakefield.
Great. And you have 3 minutes to offer comments.
Oh, yeah, sure. I just wanted to bring something up to the Board of Directors. Thanks for having me here and allowing me to speak. I've been working for the town of Wakefield for 5 years. I'm a janitor here at the Civic Center. And I was fired on Friday because of the health mandates that you all mandated. And I just wanted to say that I felt like it was unfair and discriminatory. That as far as I understand, there was a COVID outbreak at the town hall, which the people that worked there had their vaccinations already, but they still got it and gave it to others there. And I felt it was discriminatory because the ones that hadn't had the shot were the ones that got punished by having to test every week and having to wear a mask even outside by yourself. So I didn't feel in my conscience that that was right. And I expressed that to many people there at Town Hall, which most told me that I should go to the council because they're the ones that promoted these mandates. So that's what I just wanted to say, that I felt it was discriminatory towards the unvaccinated to mandate things that the vaccinated didn't have to do, and which they themselves could get sick also and pass it. So I wanted you to understand that, to know that. Also, it's because of my conscience. It's a sincerely held belief that discrimination is not right. So I wanted you to know that, and I would ask the town council respectfully that if you're planning to do any more mandates, please think twice, because people that work, we have families, we have children. This is the way that we provide for them. And some of us might think differently or have a different kind of belief. And as Americans, that should be respected. So I just wanted to submit that, and please, please consider twice before you mandate anything else, how it would affect people's lives. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Sure.
Sherry, are there any other public comments? You're on mute.
No, there's nobody else.
Okay. Okay. Item number 5, honoring and remembering our dear colleague, Peter May. As I believe everyone certainly here and in the community may know, Peter passed away last week after a very courageous battle with ALS. Just weeks before that, we were walking in the ALS Angel Fund walk, and he just fought till the very end. His family had some lovely services for him this weekend that I think all of us attended. We have left his chair vacant for today. It's very hard to be here without him. I wanted to have a moment of silence and then invite any of the counselors who wanted to share some of their memories and reflections to do so. So if we could have a moment of silence. Thank you. I think I will take the chair's prerogative and start. Peter was chair the year that I was first elected to the town council, and he was just so giving in terms of sharing how the process worked. I will never forget having lunch with him at Sakura, of course, because we would always frequent local businesses, and just walking through the process and giving advice like be yourself. It can be a little overwhelming, and the chair is certainly somebody we all look up to, especially as newly elected. It's a little daunting, and he just made, kind of demystified the council and really made this a place that I knew that I could do good work, and that we as a town could do good work. So that's my memory. I invite anyone else here to share thoughts, reflections.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. I think I served the longest with Peter.
You did.
And, we didn't always vote the same way. We didn't think about certain issues in the same way. However, I never once had an unkind word. I never felt cajoled into changing my opinion, which sometimes I think we tend to do. You get to advocate and you kind of forget that a person they're doing what they think is best. And I think with Peter and I, we knew we were both coming at it perhaps very differently, but we were doing what we thought was best. And when I was chair is when he started losing his voice. So he would tell me what to say via phone. And, he would, if I was voting a certain way, he would, yell on the phone that, make sure you say, and I would always share with it. And after every conversation, and this was up until last week, we ended it with the heart emoji or the kissy heart emoji. And I love you. And I cared a lot about everyone on the council, but I don't know that I've said I love you with kissy hearts to the rest of the people. And it was just so sincere. And I will miss him. I will miss his. He voted the way he really thought that was best for Wakefield. He didn't owe anyone any votes, and he did what he thought was right. And I think we can all take from him that aspect of civility and kindness and just really caring about other people. So those are my thoughts.
Councilor Chines?
Thank you. No, I'm happy to talk. And really, first of all, just I know we've all had the chance to kind of express our condolences to Peter's wife and son, for their loss, but wanted to say that again publicly. I was thinking a lot about the day that I actually pulled papers to run for town council, and of course I was, running the same year that Peter was up for re-election, as well as Councillor Santos, and it's always sort of weird when you're kind of running all together in an election, particularly, when it's a contested election. And, despite kind of showing up at town hall and pulling papers, the first person to come up to me and shake my hand and just say, congratulations for doing this. It's great that you stepped up. I look forward to kind of, going through the campaign with you, was Peter. And in fact, I think I'd have to go back and look, but I think he was actually the first person to sign my nomination papers. And, it was one of those things where it was something that he didn't need to do. It was something that I certainly didn't expect anyone to do, but, it was just, it was a class act, and it just showed, the person he was. I mean, he was a gentleman and someone who just exuded kindness. In a way that I'd like to think we all try to aspire to be, but I'm sure, we don't often succeed. And, I was thinking then a couple months later after the election, we got together for breakfast at Brothers. And, this was when he was also just starting to have some symptoms and was talking about, some of the struggles with speech. But, it was clear that his heart was still so invested in his role as a town councilor. And I have to say, it was one of the more, I think we spent close to 2 hours together. It was one of the more enjoyable times that I've spent, in this job. I mean, we had a wide-ranging conversation about, our families, what was important to us. We talked about our priorities. We talked about areas on the town council where we probably didn't agree, but it was never, I think, Anne, to your point, it was never an argument, but it was more of a, trying to gather some understanding about, where I was coming from and where he was coming from. And, I left there thinking to myself, we're not always going to vote the same, and we didn't. But I'm really looking forward to serving with him. And, it's unfortunate that because of both his disease and COVID, we didn't really get too many opportunities to do that afterwards. And that's one of the things that, sort of I look back with regret on, my few years on the council so far. But again, just a testament to the person he was. And I think in, such a short period of time, the impact, I think, certainly that he had on me, and I know everyone else that met him.
I'll go. I did not have the opportunity to serve with him for very long, but I did know Peter. And when I decided to run, I reached out to him on text, and I said, Jan, do you have any advice for me? And he said, you know what, be yourself. He said, be yourself and always put Wakefield first. And I think that is how he led. And he was such a gentleman. He had so much integrity, and he was very kind. And yeah, I probably might not have aligned with him politically on everything, but I think that he's a role model about how we should all be conducting ourselves. It's with, advocating for what we believe in and voting what's in our conscience, but also being kind to our fellow people in our community and people that we serve with. So I hope that I can model that behavior that he did so exemplary.
Well said. Why don't you go, because it's going to end.
Okay. Just to echo what everyone said, and condolences again to Connor and Eileen. I shared on social media that when I decided to run, Peter told me to knock on his door, and I ended up sitting at their kitchen counter for hours where he just told me all his campaign advice. And again, same values of follow your heart and do what's best for Wakefield. And he really helped me in my first year of inviting me to events. And I think when I think about Peter, it's we see each other every other week, so you become part of a group, part of a family. But we go to a lot of events in non-COVID times, and so I always, when I think of Peter, I think about the dog park, and I think about when that dog park opened. I think about the parades that we marched in. I think about him being the DJ at the parade fundraisers. He really loved being PJ the DJ.
Yes.
which was his email address. So, he was, and to echo what Ann said, we didn't always agree on votes, but I never doubted he was doing what he thought was best for the town. And he did love this town, whether it was for Friends of the Lake activities or town activities, the MLK Day celebration. So he will be missed. He was a big part of our lives for the last 5 years that I've served on the council.
Absolutely.
Can I just add too? He was funny.
Yes.
I think I know Maureen and I had the opportunity to visit with him probably a month and a half ago, and even just as he was dealing with such horrible circumstances, he's writing jokes on his phone and showing them. I mean, he had such a great spirit, and again, just a joy to be around. Sorry, Ed, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Before you go to Ed, I know Ed wants to.
Yeah,
if
so,
I can-
yes, please, Steve.
I just wanted to say that I really will miss Peter a lot and really enjoyed serving for him. And what a measure of a man, and how wonderful he was to his family, how much he loved them, was proud of his wife Eileen, his son Connor. I remember Connor and Peter and I went to lunch to kind of talk about Connor's, what he wanted to do with his life, and I was really honored that Peter, invited me there to talk with him. And another person that became part of our kind of family here was Aunt Helen. Yes. Aunt Helen, who came to so many events with us when we had events, and we'll get back to those great events these days. And Peter was so good to his aunt, took her everywhere, and she was another member of our family, so miss Aunt Helen too. And Peter, one thing that stays with me about Peter, he would say, Steve, it's all about the W. It's all about Wakefield, and that's what he was. So just wanted to jump in and say a few words. Thank you.
And we're going to Councilor Dombrowski last, not because we're gonna actually move one of the items on the dog park up earlier as well. But please, Ed, offer your comments, and then we can do the other item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, I think we all share a collective loss with Peter's passing. I think there are so many dimensions to Peter that many in the public may never know. There was just such depth to his commitment to our community. I was able to communicate with him on the regular, and he so often was talking about ways in which he could do things to make Wakefield better. And every single constituent that came to him with an issue, he was committed to solve the problem for them. And that was a commitment that was really second to none. I mean, the commitment carried through this community until the very end. He, up until 3 weeks before his passing, he was participating in a town council meeting and voting and engaged. And I can't tell you how many times before meetings, he and I would communicate. It used to be by phone, and then it was ultimately by text, on various issues, that he was going through the packets on. And it was just that level of commitment. And that's the sort of thing I know you don't see from these meetings necessarily, but he took his job seriously. He took his commitment to his community incredibly seriously. And he had a real compassion for the people that he served. And he realized that. And I think he really embodied what we all aspire to be in terms of a public servant. He knew that he was serving the public, and with every decision that he made, with every comment that he made, he thought he was speaking for the community at large. And so I miss him incredibly already. It was in some ways sudden, but in some ways not, for him, because he was of such a perfectly sound mind until the very end of his life. And, and it just goes to speak to the way in which, this terrible, disease of ALS can just ravage someone's life, and like, so, he may have lost his voice, but he didn't lose his spirit. And that is something that I think will carry on through our community for many years to come. And he did a lot of really impactful work that I think has made Wakefield a better place.
Absolutely. Did anybody else want to offer any comments? So what we're going to do is move item 8B, the dog park dedication, because it really is interconnected with Peter. It was one of his great loves, and just I love going by it daily and remembering kind of so many people enjoy it, and he did that. So, Councilor Dombrowski, I think you have some comments.
I do actually, Madam Chair and fellow councilors, I have a motion that I'd like to present before this body. And so I hereby move that we vote to rename the Wakefield Dog Park located on Main Street in honor of the late town councilor Peter May, to be known as the Peter J. May Memorial Dog Park. Early on in his tenure, Peter was instrumental in the creation of this dog park, which has become a popular destination throughout the years for our 2- and 4-legged residents alike. It is especially befitting that this park, a place of gathering, socializing, and enjoyment for so many within our community, be named for such a devoted public servant who led with the basic principle of doing right by the W, our town of Wakefield that he so loved.
Second.
Great. Any discussion?
Just briefly,
Sure.
I'm going to throw out a legal phrase here, but for Peter May, I don't think we'd have a dog park. So I think he was even more than instrumental. I think he was, without a doubt, the driving force behind it. And when I found out that Peter had died, you know, I know we have policies about naming certain buildings, and I thought to myself, that policy. Peter May is going to be named after the dog park. We're not violating the policy, but it's, you know, I know we take a slow take on that, which we rightly should, but the but-for causation for not having, without Peter we wouldn't have it, is just so fitting. So I am thrilled to vote in favor of this.
Absolutely. Any other discussion?
If I could just offer, Madam Chair. So I have been doing some work in anticipation of this vote coming before the body, and obviously, you know, nothing can happen until we vote on this, and I hope that my colleagues will join me in voting in the affirmative. But I do think that logistically we can make this happen in the coming few weeks, so that it's something that would happen before winter gets here, where we still have some nice weather. So at our next meeting on the 25th, I'll have some more details and specifics, but I think we can make that work in speaking to various folks.
Great. And obviously we'll want to include his family and others in the community.
Yeah, exactly. And I specifically reached out to Eileen on that piece too, to make their availability, because I would have to drive, you know, obviously dates and whatnot. And you know, she couldn't, I think she couldn't be more excited and more proud of her husband's, you know, name being connected with that tremendous accomplishment of his.
Absolutely. Okay, so if there's no more discussion, we will take a roll call vote. Counselor Danahy?
Yes.
Counselor Santos?
Aye.
Counselor Butt?
I'm saying yes, and also doing Peter's sign that he used lately. So, yes.
Counselor Chines?
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski?
A very enthusiastic aye.
Yes, myself, yes. So unanimous vote in favor of renaming the Wakefield Dog Park the Peter J. May Memorial Dog Park. And Ed, we will look to you in the upcoming meeting to help us with details and anything that you need from us or the town.
I'll have all the information for.
Great. Okay. Okay, deep breath. Item number 6, appointments. Laurel Gorville is joining us. This is a joint meeting with the Board of Health for an appointment to fulfill an unexpired term on the Board of Health through April of 2022. Laurel, do you want to give any of the background or history?
I can. So my name is Laurel Gorville. I've been on the Board of Health since 2009. I did want to, since I was here, just sort of reflect upon that time and that it's been bookmarked by 2 pandemics. So in 2009, we regionalized with Melrose. We were fortunate to be working with Ruth Clay, who is, and I just want to, recognize her work at this time. So over a decade, our department has grown by numbers, but it's also become nearly a department with a strong reputation as being, in some cases, a demonstration project on how communities can really buffet public health. And so we've been really fortunate. As you know, but I'm not sure the whole town knows, in Ruth's absence, Ruth had a well-deserved retirement. I can't tell you how many health directors retired this year. It's a tough one. we were in a situation where we had a very tight turnaround to get a health director, and our first round was not satisfactory. We had big shoes to fill. So at that time, our board member, Elaine Silva, was tapped to be interim director, and in that case, she had to resign as a board member. We have since hired Anthony Chow, who I'm thrilled to just see the work that he's already done. He's really assimilated both communities, incredible nuances in both, and he has a keen-eyed public health, and I think our next chapter is going to be very exciting. So that being said, we have to fill, we have been vacant a seat since June, and it's time to fill it. And so again, we've done this process twice. We appointed someone a couple of years ago, and I just want to note that in both cases, we've had excellent candidates come up for appointed positions. And I know there was some talk in your last town council meeting, and there needs to be talk amongst the Board of Health on whether it may be time to reconsider the charter and how we both formulate the number of Board of Health members as well as whether it be elected or appointed. And I just reflected that in the years that I've been reelected on 3-year terms, I've only had 1 or 2 folks come up, interested in going through the election process. And I, commend anybody who puts themselves, including all of you, through the election process. But I think there's such specialized work in health departments and Board of Health that we may reconsider. So I want to thank both on the first round and again this round, we had 4 new members of the community submit applications, and every one of them would bring a new perspective. And of those candidates, I hope that some are, one candidate especially is working with us now in our COVID efforts, and what a year that's been. And others have different administrative views, and I would love to see all of these candidates continue their interest in the work that we do. I am, however, really excited that Elaine is still with us and that she has not cashed in on a retirement and run the other way, but in fact also submitted her application to rejoin the board and finish her term. So with Elaine's expertise in regards to just the history of the health department and her ability to actually run a health department, she remains our strongest candidate, and I unequivocally would recommend that Elaine fill that seat.
So I think we can take that as a motion.
So I would make the motion that Elaine Silva fill the vacant seat on the Board of Health until April of 2022.
Is there a second? Second. So motion made by Laurel Gorville, seconded by Jonathan Shines. Any discussion? Councilor Santos.
So once again, I'm incredibly impressed by the quality of the candidates, and I think you're right, Laurel. I think I'm not sure these same candidates would run for election because it's a different animal, and I think that's something we need to talk about with the Board of Health, absolutely, to get the best people, because I know some of the candidates that applied, and the others impressed me so much. I do think having Elaine return as a member of the Board of Health, first of all, she gave up that seat to take over when Ruth had retired. And we're still not out of kind of the pandemic where we can see the end, hopefully. We've said that before, but I think to have a sense of stability in moving forward, I am more comfortable having Elaine in that position right now. And hopefully, if we can get together and maybe expand the board, then, these other folks who are outstanding.
Any other discussion? Councilor Dombrowski, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do think that in the coming months, we have to have a real serious discussion about what the future of the Board of Health looks like, as the highest, council or committee. I think it's important that we look at it from a really holistic view. And in looking at these resumes, I'm not sure we've ever had a stronger pool of applicants applying for this position. I feel like there's a lot of talent that has been like untapped within our community that we as a community would really benefit from. And so whatever capacity, and it's a broader discussion that will begin, I'm sure, in the months to come. And we did raise it last time. I would like to see something. I would like to see an expansion of the size of the Board of Health. And I think we can also consider any number of options. Perhaps some of them are elected while others are appointed, or something to that effect. Because what I liked from this applicant pool was the diversity of experience, which I think is something that, one, inherently a board of three, it's harder to have that. And two, I don't think we really have as much breadth of diversity of experience, within this health realm that we could. So I'd like to be able to see us, really expand this out in a really thoughtful way, so that we are able to check off even more boxes than we currently do. And our current Board of Health certainly does a phenomenal job, but I think there's only opportunity for it to be that much better. And these folks just wowed me with their submissions. I think any one of them would be a really excellent candidate. But given Elaine's sacrifice to fill in, to pitch hit for us, I think it does make sense to let her resume the role that she's held for a while.
Councilor Butt?
I echo what both Ann and Ed said, that I think it's a conversation that we've said we need to have. I also just want to take a moment and thank you, Laurel, and thank you, Candace, for doing a two-person team, and Elaine, obviously, but I think there's moments where we forget we're in a pandemic and we haven't really thought about all that you accomplished with giving out masks and giving out vaccines and the flu clinics and making sure Wakefield got to the other side of this. And so I want to take a moment. I know we all are so appreciative, but just a two-person board, a volunteer two-person board where you are dealing with, some of you are dealing with school or young children and your own, health issues, and to help the town out like that. It's very appreciative. I can't even imagine being having two people do all of it. So thank you, and wholeheartedly appreciate Elaine willing to come back. I think she complements the team really well. So just wanted to thank you and Candace and Elaine.
And I'll just add to that, we do have a letter in our packet from Candace Linehan, who's the chair of the Board of Health. I won't read the whole thing, but she regrets not being able to be here, but she recommends the appointment of Elaine Silva and hopes that we will join her in doing so. So I won't read the whole thing, but I did want to point that out. Unfortunately, we scheduled the meeting at a time she couldn't make it, which is on us. So.
Could I, sorry, Ann.
Yeah, Councilor Dennehy?
I was going to also say thank you to all the work that the Board of Health has done during the pandemic, and all the, really the unsung heroes of this pandemic in Wakefield, I think. I also wanted to say that this was an amazing pool of candidates. And again, I agree with everything that's been said, that we should do anything that we can to get more people involved when we have such talent. And so I look forward to ongoing conversations about how can we strengthen this board and support it, because there is a lot of work that needs to be done, and a lot of work for a small board. So thank you.
So thank you, everybody. So we're digressing in regards to the size of the board. I would just, while we have a 3-member board, hopefully very soon, I just want to remind people that, this has been a year, for sure. And I think that while we remain a 3-member board, there have been, I think, assumptions that we are in the know of certain things, and we have always sort of run on trusting the health director, who then disseminates information. So being a 3-member board, like the chair of the board can't even call me. The director always had. So amongst, so the motto on every T-shirt that I would make is, never about us without us. So please don't assume that we have been read in as board members. You may be getting different bits of information, and I would say this year with people being remote, we haven't been able to kind of organically pick up on certain things and helping people. So I think that's something that we need to continue to work on. And I would like to add the unsung heroes. Steve and I sort of kind of promised and hoped that we would have a big party for everybody who showed up down at the Converse Center in the months of February and March to celebrate the incredible work that was done. It was a fabulous effort, and we got a lot done. I don't have the numbers to give you, but it was really quite a group experience. And the volunteers who came out to do some long hours really spoke to our community, and they were happy to do it. And I've been, hearing that they're happy to do it again. So to all of them, I don't think we've had the time to pause and really thank them, but to all of you who just showed up, and it was it was a party atmosphere because people were so desperate to help and move us along. And I kind of used the equation of just going to shoot my way out of this by giving as many vaccines as I could. So I just wanted to add that to my comments. Thank you.
Great. All right, so I think we have a seconded motion on the table. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, the motion on the table is to appoint Elaine Silva to fulfill an unexpired term on the Board of Health through April 2022. We'll do a roll call vote. Counselor Danahy?
Yes.
Counselor Santos?
Yes.
Counselor Butt?
Yes.
Counselor Chines?
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski?
Aye.
And myself, yes. I'm sorry, and
Board of Health.
Laurel Gorville, of course.
Board of Health, yes.
Yes, okay. So that would be a 7, and myself, yes, so a 7-0 vote in favor of Elaine Silva
Wonderful.
returning to finish out her term.
Thank you very much, and thank you
And thank you to
again.
everybody who applied, as everybody said, excellent resumes.
And don't forget, pop-up flu clinic.
Pop-up flu clinic on Saturday, right?
Yep.
Is it at the farmer's
And
market?
yours truly. I've only given at least 2,000 of these, so
Okay,
I got you.
good to know.
Take good care.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have one more appointment to make tonight, or one more commission, I suppose, to appoint to, the Disability Commission, and we had 2 applications in our packet. If I'm not mistaken, we have at least two openings for that board. Sherry, am I right about that? Okay.
Yeah, you are. It was
Great.
originally, they did have 9. They're down to 7.
Okay, so this would bring them back up to being whole. Okay,
Yes, correct.
excellent. So Vice Chair Butt, why don't you make the motion?
We have 2 great candidates, so I'd like to move that we appoint Catherine Stadi and Kristen Bardell to the Disability Commission.
Second. Excellent. Any discussion around those 2? No, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Counselor Danahy?
Yes.
Counselor Santos?
Yes.
Counselor Butt?
Yes.
Counselor Chines?
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski?
Aye.
And myself, yes. So welcome Kristen and Katie, right, to the Disability Commission. Item number 7, approval of minutes from the September 27th meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Counselor Santos, seconded by Vice Chair Butt. Any discussion on the minutes from September 27th? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Counselor Danahy?
Yes.
Counselor Santos?
Yes.
Counselor Butt?
Yes.
Counselor Chines?
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski?
Aye.
And myself, yes. So we have a number of project event updates. We're going to start with the Department of Public Works, which has a meaty presentation in our packet. So I'm looking forward to hearing that. Welcome, Joe Conway, and I'll let you introduce your team.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can. And first of all, congratulations, Joe, on your addition to your family.
Oh, thank you very much. It's been an exciting few weeks, for sure.
I'm sure it has been.
So obviously, as you just stated, myself, Joe Conway, Public Works Director, with me is Town Engineer Bill Renaud. We are here to kind of provide a fall update of some things that happened over the summer and give a little bit of good news and provide a little insight of what the future might look like. Meaty was a good way, I think, to describe the PowerPoint that's going to accompany this. I was going to say that it's fully loaded with details, and it is.
We have it in front of us. I hope the public has it as well.
We can share it if you like, too, I believe.
WCAT can kind of advise, they can advise you on that.
I think WCAT has it.
They do? Okay.
There they go. It's right there.
Okay, great. Go right ahead.
So one of the things I was going to say is this presentation is fully loaded with some details. Like I mentioned, it's a little bit of update of some things that have happened, some things that are going to happen in the future, and a couple of nice little updates in between. When sitting down and thinking about putting this together, I can tell you that in reviewing some of the activities of the staff here, the list of things that we have going on is quite extensive. So this is going to focus a little bit more on some of our larger capital programs and improvements. As myself and some of our team come through over the winter months, you'll get updates on other things we're doing too, a little bit smaller level. But if I go to the next slide, please, for a moment. So just a quick overview. Over the next few minutes, both Bill and I will provide an update on the Broadway Crossing, and then some additional updates on our road program, the Albion Street project, Pickleball Courts at Veterans Field. We'll give you an update on the Shared Streets project that happened on Main Street, Greenwood Street, and Oak Street. We'll touch a little bit on water and drainage utilities, the Wakefield Linfield Rail Trail, and then in the end, we're going to review a couple of the grants and some other things that we feel were important to highlight at this point in time. So without further review, I'm going to get right into it, and I'm going to pass this off to Bill, and he's going to start with Broadway.
Joe, can you just move closer to the microphone?
Yep, sorry about that.
That's okay. You faded a little bit.
Oh, how about now?
Good.
Okay.
So I was just concluding that I was going to pass this off to Bill, and he's going to start this with an update on Broadway.
Sure. Can we get the next slide, please? So I've finally got to come to the council with some good news. It's been a long time waiting. So, yes, there's no more delays. We have a letter in hand. It's actually been signed. It's about time. So the good news, we heard that we got the letter, received it on October 8th. So what that did is that letter approved our alternative safety measures that were installed at Greenwood and at Broadway, as well as the ones that were installed at Prospect previously. Basically, the next steps after that is we turn into essentially a 3-year cycle to re-review each of those ASMs. So that'll start, clock starts on October 8th. Same day we were ready, as we talked about previously, that we'd be ready to file our notice of establishment, the amended notice of establishment, which starts that 21-day clock to open Broadway up permanently with no horns. So our opening date will be October 29th. And at this point, we pretty much are done with the FRA process, at least for the near term. Next steps, we're going to be looking at quad gate installations, as well as some enhancements at pedestrian enhancements at those crossings. We'll be presenting an article at the regular town meeting on November 6th. In the meantime, I'm also going to be going after some grant funds. There is what's called the Christie Grant, Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvement Grant application. I'm going after that. That's due in November. We also have an earmark in the Transportation Bond Bill that's being supported by Senators Markey, Warren, and Representative Moulton. So we have some financing that we're trying to go after. Obviously, some grants that would be definitely a good thing to move this project forward. And I'll also be looking at some traffic counts and stuff to see really what we need to do as a scope for the quad gates. So that'll be kind of what I'm working on for the next couple of months, after we get through town meeting. So good news on quiet zone stuff, finally. It's been a long time. So I don't know if you want to take questions as we go through each one, or if you prefer to wait to the end. I'm happy to do either, Madam Chair.
I think let's go all the way through and then we can come back.
Sounds good. Well, I will do that. All right, next slide, please. Joe, I think you're taking this one. Yep.
So for the roads program, this is just an update on our 2020-2021 contract. The contractor awarded was Aggregate Industries. We're happy to say that it's nearing substantial completion. Part of this contract, a little over a mile, about 1.25 miles road was treated. Collins Road, Mitchell Lane, Vernon Street from the Dolbear School to the Linfield line, Water Street from Butler Ave to Melvin, and Flanders Lane. We can report that all the sidewalk work is complete. The only thing that is remaining is a punch list of minor tasks, a couple of driveway apron adjustments, a little bit of line painting, and it should all wrap up this month. Next slide, please.
So I'll hop into the current contract. So our current contract for 2021, I'm sorry, 21 and 22 rather. Basically, so we've awarded the contract to Lazaro. That was done a little while back, and we've run into some issues with curb supply. So one of the pandemic things that you wouldn't think of is the folks to cut the curbs are not working at the curb cutting locations. So we don't have curbs to install. So any road that has some curb work, which are a lot, unfortunately. So it's granite curb, where if you think about it, any handicap ramp that we put on a side of a road, we do that on every road essentially that we're paving. We don't have the curb to install. So that has delayed the project a touch. So what we ended up using the money in the contract for is the contractor ended up helping us out with the Broadway Crossing and doing all the curb work that was needed there. That essentially used up their amount of curb that they had. So obviously we made that the priority, which had to defer some of the other work to the spring. For our fall work, what we're doing is we're working on utility improvements. So if you recall, when I started talking about the roads program at town meeting, and when we initially started this whole program and went after the initial bond, we talked about coordinating these projects with needed drain improvements, utility improvements, gas improvements, all those types of things. So we have that going on right now in the spring. So the goal, in the fall rather. So the goal is to essentially get these things done prior to us paving. So we have some drainage improvements that we've identified at Beebe Lane, Drury, Brewster Forester neighborhood, Sweetser, and Curve Street. So all that work is ongoing right now. That'll all be completed prior to winter shutdown. We recently completed some water main upgrades at the Pleasant and Aborn intersection, as Pleasant Street's on our roads program. At some point, we'll be moving forward with the rest of Aborn, but we want to at least get that intersection complete so we can go through and pave Pleasant Street next year and have essentially the water infrastructure in the intersection upgraded. One thing that's been kind of a hot button issue is the condition of Main Street. I'm sure you have all noticed the condition. It's very poor, and we know that. So we have a lot of drainage improvements that we're looking to do. That's going to take some time for us to get those design permitted, and we're actually going after all the grant fundings for that. So our plan now is to do essentially a thin overlay of Main Street, just to essentially hold it together. So it's going to look, it's going to look like a permanent treatment, but that's really not what it is. We're essentially using a much smaller cost than what we typically would do. We're expecting, essentially a 3 to 5 year lifespan for this. That would allow us to cut through this, do the work that we need to do for the water quality upgrades in Lake Quinnipiac that we plan. And we also have some water main improvements that we're going to need to do in that same time frame. So that'll be essentially a quick improvement. You'll obviously see a definite improvement in drivability of the road, and obviously it's probably one of the main areas that we get complaints on. So the reason I want to highlight it is just that we will be cutting back through this. So this is essentially just to hold the road together. Because what ends up happening is as we pave, as we plow every year, we just rip out chunks and chunks of the road. So this will basically be done to hold the road together for for the near term. The rest of the streets that are on the list, we have about a little less than 2.5 miles of total roadway. That will all be done and starting up in the spring of 22, as soon as we have our granite curb in. And the list is shown in the slide here to the left, and you also can see it with graphically to the little graph that's to the right. Basically, all the roads that are in the green are the ones that we're looking to do, essentially really off of Pleasant Street and kind of in those neighborhoods up by Lowell and Vernon. So next slide, please. Albion Street. So another project that we're moving forward with. So as you recall, we received a Complete Streets grant for a little under $400,000 about a year ago. Work started on that in earnest right around late winter so that we could start to facilitate construction throughout this season and get to use the grant funds within the grant timeframes that we had. Scope included work from Foster down to North Ave. We were replacing all the concrete sidewalks in that stretch. We installed 4 new bump out areas, a bunch of green space that was based on some feedback that we received. You can see essentially the rendering here in the plan below in the bottom part of the slide as to what we were, kind of demonstrating it would look like. To the right, you see some of the bump outs that are installed today, plantings that are in there. This was actually taken earlier in the week. We have trees that went in, I believe yesterday, that was all completed. Right now, they're working on finalizing permanent pavement patching as we did the work in the winter. Our intent is to let the patches go over a freeze-thaw cycle, and then we plan to come back to do final paving in the spring of next year. And that's included in the roads program slide that I just spoke about previously. So that already is awarded, and that work will happen, basically early spring to finalize that. Light poles, those are being manufactured. They ship out at the end of the month. Our folks in the light plant are working with us to install those in November is the time frame. We had a lot of utility coordination with this project. So, electrical improvements to facilitate these light poles were already installed as part of the design. So essentially it's really just pop these things in, screw them down, and power them up. So obviously that's a very, it's a little bit more complex than that, but that's essentially what we're looking to do. So we can move to the next slide, please. Wetfield Pickleball. So we have awarded a contract to Cassie Landscaping for the work. If you recall, our scope initially was just to install or replace the existing tennis court with a new pickleball and tennis court combination. So to size it to be able to use the pickleball and have 4 pickleball courts and 2 tennis courts, we had to expand the size a touch, which means that we would be going to our Conservation Commission to get approval. As part of that, we also looked at the walkway and the water quality and drainage in the area. So we ended up expanding the scope a touch to start using some of our capital funds and part of our plan to start, enhancing the water quality in Lake Q. Part of the project included treatment of an outfall that's adjacent to the basically adjacent to the Harshorn House and kind of in between the Harshorn House and the court itself. We filed an application with the Conservation Commission in the early beginning part of the year. We received approval from them back in May. Unfortunately, we then had a appeal from Mass DEP looking at some additional constraints and updated, I guess what I would say is some new regulatory changes that are happening at the state level. I guess the short gist of it was that most of the work that we were doing was consistent with their regulations. They asked for some small tweaks. That took us about 2 months, 3 months to coordinate. They issued, after we filed our final plans with them in end of August, we received a letter which is called a superseding order of conditions. So what it does is supersedes the order that was provided by our Conservation Commission. That came in September, which allowed us to actually start moving forward with the project. Scope-wise, we also were including, you can see the little insert there. We have an area where it erodes the gravel path that's there. So we had an erosion area that essentially started filling in portions of the lake, and that turned into an invasive species area. So what we did is we designed in a removal plan to control the invasive species and replace it with a new pollinator garden. So you'll have your butterflies and your bumblebees in there to to pollinate through. And so we worked with the conservation department to identify the planting plan and work with them to provide even further enhancement around the lake. We also looked at ADA improvements on Floral Way. So that erosion that you saw that was happening, besides being a water quality problem for Lake Q, also is a ADA issue. So we looked to regrade Floral Way, and we were able to get shared streets grant to actually fund about 3/4 of the cost of that of paving Floral Way, essentially repitching it into the hill so that the stormwater would be collected and essentially directed into the new treatment system that we provided. So basically a bunch of little programs all in one project. We identify, any ability to enhance stormwater around the lake becomes a priority for us if we're doing anything, any type of project. So this is a good example of really taking, one initial scope and trying to hit a few other, a few other programs that we're responsible for doing in Public Works and making it, one larger project that provides a lot more benefit to the town. I'll take construction-wise. Our contractor is looking to start some point here in the fall before the end of the winter shutdown. I'm expecting him to start on some drainage improvements and start on the bioretention area and maybe potentially get that planted before the end of the year. He'll at least rough grade that in and grade the basin in the way we want it to be. So that's what I'm expecting to have him get done in the fall, and then basically finalize the rest of the project by spring of next year. Next slide, please.
Can I just jump in for 1 second? So just to update the council too, another project that you're going to see happening there. The material is finally in for the roof at the Hartshorn House. So tentatively, weather depending, October 18th is the start date for that. We're expecting about 2 weeks to remove and replace that. So we had a pre-construction meeting with the folks over there, and it seems like we're ready and on our way to get that done before winter. So we're on the subject and the location. I just wanted to add that in there.
Okay, so another grant award project. Our project at Main, Greenwood, and Oak was a shared streets application that we pulled together for the winter shared streets program. We also expanded it a little bit beyond what our application was to do a little bit of additional sidewalk based on some comments that we received from the council. So what we've done is we've installed a new bump out area and some green space over by the intersection of Greenwood and Main. We have some sidewalk replacement and new curb ramps that were installed on Main, Greenwood, and Oak. One of our new wayfinding signs was installed. We'll be adding in another one on the other side as well for folks that are coming from the Melrose side. But right now we have it coming in from the essentially from the downtown side. We also included new ADA pedestrian signals that was part of the grant. So new push buttons that meet the vibrotactile requirements in the public rights of way accessibility guidelines. Work was completed back in April, May for most of it, all the hardscape work itself. ADA pedestrian signals went in closer to late May, and then the bike rack and wayfinding signage were just completed back in September. So this project at this point is pretty much completed at substantial completion. And we've been hearing some good things about the work. The sidewalk did extend a gap that we didn't have on Greenwood to go back to the tracks and connect to the other side of the train tracks by Greenwood. So another good connectivity for pedestrian enhancements with the project. Next slide, please.
So
water, yep.
So I was gonna say, this slide, the water mains, as you probably heard, or if you might remember, during the rate hearings and discussions leading up to that for the past 2 years, Public Works, we've redone our water model and updated our capital plan. We took the same mindset that we took with the roads project, develop a grading system related to water mains. We took into consideration system dynamics, water quality and fire flow conditions, the pipe material, and then also the age and break history. So one of the areas that was identified through that exercise was the North Ave water main from essentially Church Street to 128. Knowing that this was identified in this plan, and then with the tentative projects that are coming up in the 200 corner Poway block, that actually opened the door for us to be able to apply competitively for a Massworks grant. And I could say today that through the effort of Bill and his team, along with Erin Kokinda, the Community and Economic Development Director, they put together a competitive application, applied for the grant, and we have been informed that we will be awarded $2 million to complete that project. So there's a little bit more paperwork to be done to finalize that, but we would expect some construction to start sometime between 2022 and 2023.
Yeah, that's all true.
Great,
I like it.
congratulations on that.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're thinking work time frame. We're working a lot with, with the developer, Cabot and Forbes, for, the tie-in obviously with their project. That's part of the, the trigger to be eligible for the Massworks grant. If this wasn't installed, this would have been identified as a capital improvement need for the project. So this also opens up potential for other funding from that group for other enhancements around town. So we're evaluating that, and we'll be working with them to ensure that we still get some other off-site improvements as well. So it's definitely a win-win for the town, and we're happy to be able to make this Massworks project happen for the town. Next slide, please. All right, so a couple of quick drainage projects to talk about. We were approached from a resident on Court Street about some drainage and flooding problems within her backyard. Essentially what there is a discharge from from Forester Road. Is it Forester Road or Brewster? One of the two. Essentially an outfall from the drainage system in that road that snakes behind a few backyards. So she has a little swale / intermittent stream, depending on how you look at it. We went through and filed with the Conservation Commission back in the fall of last year, received approval. Worked with our on-call contractor and Grenice & Sons to scope the project and to move it forward for fall construction this year. We were looking to get it done earlier in the year, but with all the rain that we've had, unfortunately, the groundwater table's been so high unseasonably for the dry season that we really couldn't get anything to do the work. So this basically shows the proposal. So we're looking to we installed a new inlet box structure to handle the flow that's coming from there. Basically, there was a half pipe that was buried and not operational. The pipe itself was actually corrugated metal and was beginning to erode on the bottom. So the bottom of it had already essentially it's metal, so it essentially corrodes away. So it was a failing pipe that was beginning to collapse. So we corrected that as part of the project, and we completed that in the beginning of this month in October. We still have a grate that goes to install. You can see at the bottom slide there's a couple of wood, plywood to make sure that nobody can fall inside of it, but that will be all remedied with a grate within the next couple of weeks. Next slide, please. And so here is the big one that we've been receiving a lot of comments and questions on. So I'll try to stay out of the weeds on this and stay 10,000-foot view, but this has been a question that's been coming around.
Not just because your chair lives on Grafton Street either.
No, not at all. To be honest with you, I don't believe I've received a call from Madam Chair on this at all. There's other residents.
Though I do get a lot of comments on it.
That we do. So if you recall, back when I started, this would have been in 2019, 2018, somewhere around there. We went to town meeting for which I want to say about a $1.3 million project to upgrade a culvert in Grafton Street. What we were doing is we were looking to expand the size of the culvert there to pass a 10-year storm. And what it would do is it would go and push all the water through that intersection where it has a capacity issue, and extend it into a wetland area that eventually discharges into the town of Melrose, or city of Melrose, I guess. So we've been looking at this for a while, and we got some concerns from the residents that are downstream. Obviously, by sending the water down, they already have flooding problems themselves. So we would be sending more water to them. So obviously that's not something we can necessarily permit unless we have an ability to demonstrate that there's no additional flooding. So to be able to facilitate that and permit it, we had to look essentially at a huge section of Melrose drainage system. So we went through, got a bunch of reports that they had looked at. So this has been an ongoing issue downstream here in Melrose as well. So back in 2007, Melrose did a drainage study for the area, basically from our town line down to the Linfells Parkway. Really what this drainage system discharges to is the golf course. If you know Linfells Parkway at all, where the golf course is, that's where all this water is essentially going to. They evaluated a couple scenarios. One was a $6 to $7 million project. Now this is 2007 dollars, not today dollars. that looked at upgrading to the 5-year design storm. They looked at what they could do to get up to a 10, and if there was any value in actually continuing to expand the project to increase more capacity in this and send it down to the golf course. They had a couple of concerns. One, with the golf course actually being flooded out by doing that. That was one big concern that the report highlighted. The other one was the cost. That was a $20 million plus. They said it's well over $20 million to move forward with anything that would be larger than a 5-year design storm. So again, back in this is 2007, so $2007. What they ended up moving forward with construction, they did some construction in 2008. So they looked at basically the smaller of the two projects. They looked at upgrades for the 5-year storm and did about $5 million of work downstream. So the flooding that we have today is with a $5 million upgrade of the Melrose system. As part of that, that did include the 2 outlets. So there are 2 outlets in this wetland system that head to Melrose. Both of those were improved. So essentially, they have upsized to what they were planning to do to get that downstream. And we designed ours, or at least the consultant that did the study designed our Grafton Street project for a 10-year storm. So basically, what I'm seeing here is that we would be sending a lot of water to a place that can't handle it. And I don't see a way to actually permit the project, and I don't see some type of cost share between the two communities that we could make this work. We don't have, I mean, we're looking at $2,007 for a $20 million plus project that provides maybe some small appreciable benefit. So we're kind of hitting a wall on this project. So that's where we are with Grafton Street today. We'll continue to evaluate, but that's where I'm sitting right now. Our engineers have gone through it. I've gone through it myself, and I'm not seeing a solution that I can actually physically permit and correct the problem that I'm seeing in Grafton Street today. So that's sort of unfortunately not the best of updates, but sometimes there are areas that we can't make a solution for. This might be one of them. So we'll continue to look through, and at some point we'll be making a recommendation on what we would think to move forward. But I wouldn't see anything close to what we were looking to do initially. We would maybe do something on a much, much smaller scale in Grafton Street, and potentially recommend a town meeting article to repurpose some of that funds and that bonding money that we were looking to do towards other projects. So that's kind of where I see this going down the road. But we'll be back to discuss this at some point. Next slide, please. Wakefield Linfield Rail to Trail. So last time we spoke, we were in the process of finalizing a design contract. That has actually happened. So if you recall, basically scope of work going from the Galvin Middle School to the PBD Town Line project is basically being managed as Wakefield being the lead community. Linfield also contributing funds. It's a 50-50 split for the project. We're at a 25% design status right now. Plans were filed, comments were received. A public hearing was held in 2019 in Linfield. And essentially, we're beginning to tick off those comments that we received and to begin the permitting phase of the project. So we're advancing the project with a boring program that's ongoing. We're looking at the hydraulic study and prepping for the environmental filings that we will have. So we went a little bit more robust with the hydraulic study so that we can potentially save a lot of money in construction and fast track the project on the back end. Environmental things that are impacts that we're looking at. We have potentially a DEP Zone A rezoning that they're looking at. That's in comment period right now. That will add some complexity to this permitting. That was some of the stuff that I was dealing with the Wetfield project. It's the same, actually, the same Zone A. They were basically trying to regulate us for something that isn't necessarily regulatable at this point, if that's a word. And so we were able to get that project approved, but they'll add a lot more complexity to the permitting project or the permitting process for this. We have some endangered species that are in the air in the Reedy Meadow area. That'll be a big piece that we have to look at. As it turns out, we have a marsh bird or several marsh birds that are in this area, and it's one of the top 5 marsh bird areas in the state. So that's a challenge that we have to work through. So we will have some type of conservation management permit that has to be maintained long-term for that area, which will be adds time to this. But good news is that we are on schedule for a 2024 completion. That was what our game plan was initially. Unfortunately, due to some funding constraints at the tip, we were pushed back to the 2026 tip. Good news is that we will be, we were originally on the 24 tip, pushed back to the 26, but we're still on schedule for our design completion, so we can potentially slide in because we will have a readiness advantage in 2024. So, at this point, nothing has really changed, but it's ticking along. That's kind of what I would say at this point. So. Besides that, we also negotiated with National Grid to construct portions of the trail. You'll notice that at this point, it's still, they're still blocked off in sections. We've had a couple of areas that have some issues with some settlement in the trail from the National Grid work. And we also had a width issue for a section where they didn't actually construct it wide enough. So I'm in the process of talking with Grid on that and remedying those issues. And then at some point, we need to start looking at each of the intersections for, ADA access. So we can't really open it up until we have full ADA access. I don't know if we would look to really open it up prior to getting this whole thing funded through the tip. So that's the Linfield and Wakefield Rail to Trail. Next slide, please. Oh, here we go. All right. Joe, I think that's you. You're on mute, sir.
Sorry about that. To kind of bring this whole update kind of full circle, one of the things that you've heard both Bill and I say a few times now is grants. I would say that I get an email every once in a while from Mr. Mayo that's very short, but it's very exciting. And it's simply anything for us. And what he's telling us in that email is essentially he's been notified from either the state or one of his constituents that an opportunity for some funding has come up, and can we benefit from any of this? Over the last 2 years or so, we've taken a very aggressive stance on grant funding. Both the feds and the state have been pretty good about making it available. I can tell you that everything that we discover on our own or that gets sent down to us from Mr. Mayo, we read, we take into review, and if we can see the possibility of a benefit for the town of Wakefield, we make a competitive application. In kind of putting this into perspective, since 2019, we've been very fortunate with the inclusion of the water main grant that we announced tonight. We've received approximately $2.6 million in work for the town of Wakefield through grant funding. So I just wanted to take a brief moment and acknowledge the staff here at Public Works for this achievement. I think it's something that everybody has the grant bug. I'm inside the administrative office, engineering, all over the place. And we're looking forward to see if we can push that number up a little bit more. So go to the last slide, please. And then so just some other things that we wanted to list out that aren't really readily apparent, but I think it's important to mention. This is an additional list of projects that Public Works has been involved in. We haven't necessarily been the lead, but mostly through the ZBA, but also with other town bodies. These are some of the areas that we've been working on and providing comment to make sure that the symmetry between some of the private development that's going on in the town's planning initiatives. As you can see, some of the things highlighted in this list is, the conversations that were struck up by the Friends of Lake Q with 200 Corner Powit and that project there. And then some other developments that have contributed to ADA access for our residents and things like that as construction has happened. So I'll leave you with this at this point in time. And if there are any questions, or Bill, if you have anything additionally to add, we'd be happy to take comment.
Great, thank you. There's a lot of information here. You have been busy. Congratulations on all the hard work and the grant funding, especially. Anybody want to start us off? You want to go ahead? Dr.
Sure.
Chines?
Thank you very much. This was a great update, and appreciate all the detail. I also will say every time you guys present on the projects that you're working on, I learn something new. So, really grateful for that. I have a couple of questions, if you'll bear with me, just with regard to roads. The first thing I just wanted to understand is to put in context. So, we had approved the road bond program, I think $10 million a couple of years ago. Roughly speaking, based on the work that's been done to date and what's sort of contracted for 21, 22, how much would you say we've spent of that $10 million? Like if you think about sort of the total pool of funds, what's the percentage you'd say that we've spent or committed at this point?
We're committed about.
I was going to say, committed. You could say committed. Year one is the full allotment of the borrowing. Year two's project Bill and his group are going through now. But essentially, each year's program will be, the bonding allotment in total.
Okay. So effectively, we've committed, if you will, half of the $10 million that was voted on at town meeting.
So it was $7.5 million, and so our first award was, and what's actually committed is about a third of that right now. So next year's program will be a little bit larger. So it's kind of delayed a little bit due to COVID. So what I'll do is I'll probably increase the size of next year's bond. So I'm probably going to add another $1 million into it. So I'm expecting, we're trying to do about 2.5. If you pardon my dog over there, but
no worries.
so that really we're about a third in. I'm expecting that we'll get through. Between Chapter 90 funds 2 added in, about maybe 3.5 to 4 for our next project, and then that'll leave us with around 3.5 for the following. Because keep in mind, we also have Chapter 90 funds. Yep. When I was presenting, I was also adding in the Chapter 90 as part of our as part of my presentation.
Okay, great. No, thank you. That's helpful context. For the Massworks grant for the water main project, so obviously we'd be talking about doing work in a lot of roads. Does that work include paving remediation, or where does that fall into the process?
Yep, sure does.
Okay.
And with North Ave especially, so I'm sure you gathered that from the presentations. We talk a lot about the paths. So if you think about what we've done, we did the new path here at Floral Way. That's been widened to be a shared use path. We have game plans within Envision down the road that we'll be talking about. We also have Gertrude Spalding, where we have the path that we just did, and obviously we have an opportunity with what's going on with 200 Quinnipiac. So we're looking at all of those projects and trying to essentially, as we pave, look to also widen and get that shared use path around the lake, because we think that's probably the high priority area. So that is, the paving piece. Ideally, what I would like to see happen is that we have the ability to potentially add in work to, facilitate that path as part of my my water main project. So, we'll be doing that as an internal project with us, essentially as the, designers and inspectors. And so as part of that, I'd look to see what I can do to facilitate that. Also, another great opportunity for grant funding. I don't think it could fund the whole run on North Ave, but it definitely could handle. I see that as a potential $400,000 grant pretty quickly. Okay. So we'll be looking at that too as an option. So, and then I kind of highlighted a little bit in the water section about the potential for other contributions. So we would look to see what else we could potentially do with Cabot and Forbes to facilitate the overall game plan. And, we do have a bike in pedestrian plan that we've been working on with MAPC that wasn't included in this presentation because we're really not at a point to talk about it, but I've looked to have them fast track all of these areas for recommendations with the understanding that we would have to cut up pavement. So this would be the opportunity to do it. So anything I have in my roads plan, I try to keep them in the loop on. So that's, kind of, we're trying to incorporate all the different programs in these plans. That's why, it may delay a month or two, but that's why there's reasons behind it, because we're trying to, we don't want to lose an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely, and I can see sort of the thought that goes into how do you piece together all of these disparate programs and work that needs to be done to make sure it's done in the right way. So, if just to make sure I'm understanding, so for the Massworks grant, we think that that's enough to at least, when we replace water mains on North Ave, for example, at least remediate the road so that the road is paved. But, that may give us other opportunities for grant funding for things like the shared use path and so forth. Is that the right way of thinking of it? Great.
Yeah, so what I'd look to do is to leverage the paving money that's included in the estimate that we provided as the Masswork grant, and then also look to get grant funding to kind of facilitate the other things that we're looking to do. So try to basically make sure we're hitting all the buttons.
Right. All right. Thank you for that. And then just finally, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about sort of where we are with the National Grid project and paving. And I'm actually asking specifically about Salem Street, which is probably the street that I hear the most about in terms of, sort of the road condition. Any sense as to timing in terms of, sort of a full curb-to-curb pave for Salem Street or some of the other streets that have been affected by the National Grid work?
Sure. So definitely. So what we've done is we've discussed with National Grid about, again, the same idea of what I just talked about trying to make sure we're looking at these other programs too. We were able to negotiate with them to have them provide us a payment so that we can actually do the work ourselves. So it wouldn't just be through National Grid. As part of taking that on, really what we want to make sure is that all the trenches have had an opportunity to settle. That's very important, because we don't want to have a strained investment here. So any road that has work going on this year, we would want to go through a freeze thaw. Any work that happens in the spring, and they will have work in the spring on Salem, we would look to essentially let that go through a settlement period too. So, portions of the areas would be curb to curb paved next year. I'm envisioning Montrose. I'm definitely envisioning portions of Salem in all likelihood. There's other TAC things that we have talked about too, like the intersection of Lowell and Salem, and kind of looking at reconfiguring that would be rolled into the program as well. So we have game plans. We're working on it. Our intent is to include it in next year's road bid, at least portions of it. We may include all of it and have the contractor defer some of the work to the following spring. But the big key here for us is that the trenches, in order for us to mill and overlay the road, those permanent trenches have to be done. So think of what I spoke about on Albion Street, where we had in the plan a temporary patch. That's what you saw that was failing and ruddy. Right now, they're out there doing the permanent patch. So that gets us the thickness of pavement that we need and makes it all smooth. We come back and then we mill off the top 2 inches of the whole road and that patch. And then we have a new surface that lasts and gives us essentially the life cycle that we're looking for. So that's kind of the program in a nutshell.
Great. Thank you very much. Really appreciate all the clarity on that.
Sure.
So Councilor Dombrowski, give your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Bill and Joe. I have the pleasure of being the DPW liaison, so I have often communicated with Joe and Bill on these items. One thing I just wanted to make sure that everyone was very cognizant of is our quiet zone status. And what was in the packet, the letter from the FRA makes clear that our risk index is at 22,079, which is good. But the upper limit to that is 22,472.
I'm very well over
that. So we're really teetering right now, and so and I know we've talked before about the need to prioritize the safety improvements to the various crossings throughout town. God forbid we have an accident of some sort. If we, as I understand it, and Bill and Joe, please correct me if I'm mistaken, if we go above the 22,472, then we're not eligible for the quiet zone status. We lose that, and the horns come back, blaring. And so I think when you mentioned, Bill, town meeting, it's so incredibly important that we recognize the funding need that is immediate and candidly overdue, it seems, to do a lot of these improvements, because we need to get that number down to something, far lower than what it is currently, because we are just teetering on the edge there. And I have serious concern that if we don't make these improvements, we could have, an incident that could put us again, over the acceptable limit. So, so incredibly important at town meeting on the 6th to take part in that. And then going forward, I know that, Bill, you're working with a lot of grant opportunities and everything possible. Representative Moulton's office has been, engaged with us as well, as has the Senate delegation, which has been, I think, very important for us because there's a lot of infrastructure improvements to be had there at all of those crossings. I also wanted to mention just on Albion Street, we have trees on Albion Street for the first time. And I don't even know, maybe one of our historians could tell us how long it's been. But between North Ave and Main, I mean, there are trees on Albion Street. And it's a huge improvement. And anyone who hasn't checked it out yet, it's still a work in progress, certainly, but you can already see the improvements that are being made. And I think that's, and it comes spring when we have the plantings take, when we have the road that will be more permanently repaved. I mean, there's a heck of a lot of work that went into that project. And I know, Bill, you were working with Gas and Light, and the utility undertaking there was massive. And I think, probably more than a lot would have anticipated. So that road is really incredibly torn up. So thank you to the businesses who were able to live through that. But I think we've definitely turned the page now on it and moving forward, which is great. And then just finally, I just wanted to say congratulations on the Massworks, the water main program. That's a huge get. And Steve, I was thinking back to when we were talking with Representative Wong about meeting with Secretary Keneally, the Housing and Economic Development Secretary for the state. And we have really developed a really nice state-local partnership there that I think has really benefited our town incredibly. I know that Secretary Keneally is a huge fan of Wakefield. He's very enthusiastic about the projects that we present before him. And when there are opportunities for grants, it's always great for us to have folks well positioned to be able to understand our community and know our needs. And so I think Representative Wong played a big role in making that introduction, Steve, that then we've been able to continue through. Our first meeting with the secretary went very well and his staff, and I think ever since then, DPW has done a great job, along with you, Steve, of maintaining that relationship, which is so incredibly important. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
If I could just one point of clarification. Sure. So on our quiet zone, so while we are very close and Councilor Dombrowski is accurate and 100% accurate on the proximity of our, I guess our current risk index, we are on now a 3-year cycle though. So we don't have, if there is an accident, we don't lose our quiet zone. So we have to refile every 3 years, and that should have been going on previously. So that's important to understand. So essentially, I'm looking now at traffic counts, and we'll be doing all of that. And I spoke a little bit about that. So that's why I'm doing that, to understand how traffic has moved. Pandemic, believe it or not, it did reduce traffic. We're starting to see it come back, but we still don't have the same level per se as what we had previously. So there's potential for that to even go lower for us. So I think we, just to make sure that the public understands and that it's clear, there's no potential for us to lose this in the next 3 years. My job now is to figure out how we're going to fund it and to get those quad gates installed. That's on me right now, and to see how many we need. So we may look and say, you know what, we're at this point, we need to actually install them in 2 intersections. So that's where I'm going to be focusing on for the next, probably the next 6 months, is figuring out that game plan and starting the coordination with MBTA, because it's in there right away. So we have to basically coordinate with them to be able to install them. So just so everyone understands those next steps, and to be clear that we're not losing it if, God forbid, there is an accident at one of those crossings.
Yeah, it's on all of us to get that done within the next 3 years, not just you. I don't know, who was first?
It doesn't matter.
I'm really.
You guys can fight it out.
I just want to, I want to thank both of you and your department, because the amount of projects you're balancing right now is absolutely astonishing, and you're doing it with such attention to detail. I think some folks sometimes don't understand the amount of steps we have to go through to then pave a road to make sure it's smooth, and it's hard not to get beaten down by the pithy pseudo-intellectual comments on Facebook. I wouldn't know because I'm not on it, and I'm so thrilled. Wakefield. But I want to tell you that I appreciate so much the professionalism and the dedication that you've shown. These projects are amazing. So you and all the men and women that work with you, please say a big thanks from us.
I will. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Counselor Danny.
Yes, you've been very busy, and it's a lot going on. And thank you, Mr. Mayo, for being so tenacious about those grant opportunities, and thank you all for pursuing them and securing them. I hear that Albion Street looks great. I'm excited for the rail to trail to finally be happening. That's exciting. And I was just wondering, what is the plan like? So we have all these projects going on, and then how do you develop a maintenance plan?
For what? I guess the
For
question
just,
is.
like, I'm new to all this, so I'm learning about DPW and how things work. Like, how is it that things get maintained? How do you factor that in when you have so many projects going on? You know, how do you plan maintenance?
Sure, Bill, I can touch on this. So first, I'll extend the invitation. If you ever want to come in, we can really break this down and go into it in high level detail. I'll save it for the sake of this meeting.
Yeah.
But typically, so in relation to roads, so our program is evaluating our street conditions, putting a plan together to when we need to resurface them so it's cost effective. Also, some other things funded through the operating budget, like crack sealing and different maintenance procedures like that, are obviously proactive ways we make sure our investments stay up to the level that, you know, we want them to. So if we're expected to get 20 years out of something, we can deliver that. Another thing that kicked off last year, we have a lot of things in the queue related to downtown, you know, the revitalization of Main Street and different projects like that. I'll just throw an example at you. One of the areas we have identified proactively that we know is going to get more expansive and probably more complicated is line painting. So we're starting to make sure that we're planning for the future so that we can keep up with these programs as they happen and fund the maintenance piece through our operating budget, so that what we don't want to do is get in the pattern of deferring and then having to ultimately come in and ask for, you know, extensive amounts of money to pay for sins of the past. So, you know, that's one kind of quick example. I don't know if that completely answers your question, but, you know, basically the ongoing maintenance is there. We make sure that, you know, we're evaluating it every year annually through the budget so that, you know, we're funding it appropriately and we're not taking a step backwards, I guess is the roundabout way to say that.
Okay.
I can just build on it a little bit. One of and kind of with the line painting especially, the big thing that we do, and you'll see a common theme with every time we come in here to talk about projects, is that we do a full townwide inventory of whatever that asset may be. So that's the big thing. So we're really pushing our asset management, and our GIS is a big part of that. So we've been supported at town meeting the last couple of years with you know, more of an increased GIS budget, and that's what's facilitating a lot of what you're seeing. So we have the road information. We've done a you know, a new painting inventory, so we actually know what needs to be painted, as opposed to, hey, go on that street and whatever you see, just paint it. We have a more strategic plan to get these things done now. So I think that probably answers part of it. And then, you know, as we add a lot of these landscaping areas and those types of things, we look at you know, potential contracts or share an island to do some of those things. If it's stormwater related, I look at it more as a you know, through our stormwater operating budget. We have a stormwater line item in our budget that covers that. So eventually we'll be moving towards a yearly contract where just those stormwater treatment systems are being managed and maintained by a third party. So, you know, that'll it's all part of the program, and we're, you know, essentially you know, really migrating into a you know, a new facet of our operation. I mean, it's really what we're doing.
Thank you.
Bill, the bicycle facility planning grant, is that the same as the MAPC grant?
It is.
Okay.
Sure is. Yeah.
And I
Yep.
know
So
you said
that's
you're
moving-
not
that's
very
moving.
far on it, but we can talk about it in the future, but I know that there's a lot, I've been getting some questions on it from the environmental committee and the Safe Streets Working Group. So just know you have some resources there to use as well.
No, appreciate it. And it's the, yeah, at this point right now, Oh, I'm getting a feedback thing going. Let me still have it? Okay, it's gone.
I think you're good now, yeah.
Okay, there we go. We're back. So, so
wants
yeah,
to talk
so yeah, we want to talk bikes. So right now we have MAPC has put out a questionnaire to try to look at the biking locations and help hone in on what we want to do with our community. So that's out and about. I was assuming that in one of the next couple of meetings we'd be coming in to talk a little bit more about where this is and once I have a better handle on a couple of other things. So that's why I didn't include it in this one, but we will have that as a discussion point, I'd say in the next month or so, I would assume.
Okay, great. That sounds good. And I actually got questions yesterday from some people about the pickleball courts too. So I assume once those go in, Steve, will they be coordinated by Recreation Department?
Yes, and yes.
Okay.
Yes.
People were asking me whether
yeah.
it's going to be permanent. Are there 4 there? Is that what I saw in the drawing?
Four
Yep,
pickleball.
there are
Okay.
4.
Okay, great.
I hope I'm off crutches by then to
I'm
play.
very
That's
excited.
what I'm hoping.
The tennis courts are still
I'll
there.
take you on, just don't
they're
break the little leg.
multi-courses. Yeah.
That's why I guess I can't visualize how like tennis and pickleball overlap, but I'm sure we'll get the full
Not together.
gist. Right. Right, exactly. So, and Grafton Street is disappointing, but not surprising. So we may need to go out and kind of talk to the neighbors about where we are on that at some point. All right. Anybody else? Anything that we missed? No? Hi, Aaron.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you very much for all your work. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, and Aaron too, who I know is a part of it. All right. We are on for event update, South Main Street event. And I think we have some related licensing to this as well,
Yes.
but who wants to give the overview?
I think Aaron will give a little bit of the overview, then I'll jump in. That's okay.
Aaron.
You're on mute.
No, we still can't hear you. You doesn't. We can't hear
Can't
you.
hear you.
Can't hear you.
We could play charades. What kind of an event is it going to be?
Sometimes switching the speaker.
I have this problem
Depending
all the
upon
time.
my work, like desktop always messes up. But the camera doesn't.
Why don't I jump in? Why don't I start
Yeah, while
with
she's doing it,
overview?
you jump
Yeah.
in. Okay.
Okay.
On Jeff.
So anyways, I wanted, we talked about this before about going way back when we had the ULI report done in Wakefield, talking about those small areas like South Main Street, doing something to bring people in and revitalize that area. And we can see some construction going on here. We have a wonderful, absolutely wonderful small business there. Shouldn't say small business, medium-sized business in Sweet Bay. The owners of Sweet Bay wanted to do something down there to kind of invite people, reinvigorate the area. So we thought about doing something in the fall, and here it is. So what we'd like to do is on Sunday, October 24th, close that mini area from Richardson Street, which is right across from the Galvin Field, to Armory Street. So it's very small, shut down. Don't think about, there's not really any businesses that are affected because the main business in there wants it, obviously, being Sweet Bay. And we are calling it Fall in Love with Wakefield, which I really like. Great job by Jen and Erin coming up with this. And there are going to be artist makers, community and nonprofit. The nonprofits will be in the Civic Center, so people can come in, kind of a mini Wakefield 101. There'll be food vendors, there'll be kids' games and art and activities, trick-or-treating, touch a truck. There's nothing like touch a truck for the kids, whether it's, all right, police, fire.
I'm here.
There you go. And live music where the council will be singing. And I didn't tell you about that yet. Live music. So it's really going to be a fun, kind of a quick afternoon from 1 to 4 on Sunday. This process. What, excuse me? 1 to 5. 1 to 5 on Sunday, 4 hours. Idle Hands is coming back, and they're going to have a beer garden behind the Civic Center, so that's going to be away from all the other activities. And I think it's going to be a great community event for the town. Hopefully the weather will be hold. We'll have some crisp weather out there, and something nice for the community with some live music. And I'm coming around that I think these smaller events probably are better as we go through it. This has been signed off by police, fire, DPW, going through the system, and Erin's done a great job. And Erin, if I missed anything, please jump in.
Can you hear me now, finally?
Yes.
Okay. I've been having Zoom issues with my desktop at work, and now I'm glad it's figured out. So yeah, it's going to be a really great event. Steve's covered most of it, but it's something we've been working on for a while. And I think after seeing the Oktoberfest, the success of that, like people just want to be out and about. And I think now we're doing more kids stuff. I think it's going to be really great. The only problem is the Patriots are playing the Jets at 1 o'clock. So if anyone has a flat screen TV they want to bring down, no, I'm kidding, to watch the game, I think we'll be good. But yeah, no, I think it's going to be a great event. So yeah. And Steve, I had to transfer my computers where we're going to be shut down from.
Well, yes, when we shut down from Richardson Street to Armory Street, so a very minor area. And we will also be requesting a one-day liquor license for Idle Hands.
You did say that the Chamber and Main Streets?
Chamber and Main Streets are involved, and our key sponsors are the Wakefield Savings Bank and the Wakefield Cooperative Bank as well. So
They're
real
always very generous.
community. And I don't know, Erin, how many people do we have going into the Civic Center? And we reached out to...
So we have the nonprofit community thing. I think we have almost going on 20, which is great. We're going to do like trick or treating through there with the kids. And Jen McDonald also has been a huge help in all this, by the way. So we're hoping to draw kids in there, and then Kid Casso, we're going to have a coloring room in the we're still figuring that out, but like a coloring page in the Heritage Room, and they'll be hanging up at the Savings Bank for like a week or two. So, and it's Wakefield themed with Halloween. So it's great.
Is there any, if it rains, is there a rain date? And I only ask because this is the second pop-up that I will be visiting a child out of state in college. And I am so sad that I am missing this. So no, I know there's not a rain date, but I'm just.
I know. Yeah, we go back and forth, but I'm hoping it'll be great. I mean, I don't think it's when they did their event, it was supposed to rain the night before. I remember looking, I'm like, oh gosh, tomorrow's gonna be a washout, and then it turned out to be a really nice day. So.
Yeah, no, I hope it's a nice day. I'm just sad. I'll hit the third one, I'm sure. Yeah.
Councilor Dombrowski?
I think this sounds exciting. I think it'll be a great opportunity for us. One thing that I did want to mention, though, and I think it's part of a broader discussion for us to have with these, as we have more pop-up events and these one-day liquor licenses for public events in town, is having some sort of more established set of requirements for the non-alcoholic beverages that are served. I know last time there were a lot of things going on, and I know that obviously the Idle Hands was overrun with, a great attendance, which is awesome. But it was just bottled water that was available. And I had raised that before we approved their last one-day liquor license, the non-alcoholic beverage option, to make sure. And I had an expectation that there would have been, more of a variety. We're talking the fall, there could be cider, there could be sodas, there could be any number of things offered up. So while I know that this isn't the forum tonight to create a policy, I think for purposes of the Idle Hands approval, I would like to just have a condition there that they have a variety of non-alcoholic beverage offerings, not just, a bottled water, being offered up. So that would be the only thing that I'd be looking for. And that was my only disappointment. I was expecting more last time, and we didn't have it. So I think if we just are a bit more clear in our directive of what our expectation is, I think that's also addressing some of the concerns that some of our community has about events that are, that can present as alcohol centric, although I understand this is obviously a family event.
But I will say, and I agree with you, Ed, there will be other food vendors around there that will have a little different than the other pop-up event. There'll be other food vendors and beverage vendors that won't have any alcohol at all in the main drag. So, but we'll have them bring in more different things.
I understand.
Anyway.
I just think even still,
I agree.
I think any alcohol, vendor needs to offer up a few different meaningful non-alcoholic options. I think that's important.
Councilor, what you wanted to add?
Yeah, no, I think this is great, Steve. I would encourage you, Laurel just left, but talking to the Board of Health about a flu clinic or vaccination clinic also, just, obsessing about getting those remaining people, but we should all be getting our flu shots. I know they're doing one this Saturday and this Thursday, but, if we're going to have a large population, maybe we do a mobile flu clinic at the Civic Center. In
Yeah,
one
we'll
of
see
the
if we can
rooms.
add one in.
Yeah, that would be great.
And I think, piggybacking on what Ed said too, I mean, I think the Board of Health and Wake Up and others might be able to help us with the policy to diversify the non-alcoholic offerings, so as not to normalize these alcoholic-centric events.
And that's something I can talk to Chris about too. We have a great working relationship with him now, so I'll make sure that's well known.
Great. Thank you.
So
I don't.
I guess you could do it in one vote, approval of the event and of the one-day liquor license.
Okay, so let's do that all in one vote. So it would, approval of the event on October 24th from 1 to 5, South Main Street, and the request for idle hands for a one-day liquor license for the same time period.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, so moved by Counselor Santos, seconded by Counselor Chines. Discussion, Ed, go ahead.
I would just ask for a friendly amendment that that idle hands in connection with that liquor license have at least 3 non-alcoholic offerings available.
Is that something you think we can work with them on, Erin?
Yes,
Okay.
I'll work on it.
Does anybody take the friendly amendment?
So that would be a friendly amendment that if it's
What do you want to
seconded
talk
by
about?
Dawn.
So we can talk, so let's discuss the amendment.
No, if it's
I don't
Putting the
know.
burden on them.
Yeah, I don't know that I think Erin has a fabulous relationship with them. And I don't know that I want to put in the policy that they have 3 non-alcoholic drinks, although I think that's a great idea. But I'm just not sure if I want to put it in the policy that they have to have 3 when we have a great relationship with them, and Erin will ensure that they have, water and cider or something else. I don't know.
But I think my challenge is that last time, I thought we had a pretty clear understanding on that, and the response we got was, oh yeah, there'll be plenty of non-alcoholic options, and it was like a 24-pack of Shaw's water, bottles that were being sold for $2 a piece, and I just didn't feel like it was, an adequate substitute for people who may not be wanting to drink alcohol.
Mm-hmm. So, Erin, are you okay with that? Was it 3? But what did you say?
I'll make it 2. I mean, you
2,
can make it
okay,
2.
just
I
one
just-
non-alcoholic. Yes, we'll be good.
So does that include water or not include water?
I think you can do water. I think you can do
Yeah,
cider.
I
I think
think
you
include
can do
water.
soda.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
we
like,
can-
let's, I'll talk to him, we'll do water and some other beverage that people can have.
Erin,
Sounds
can
good.
I make a suggestion that you call the MWRA and see if you can bring the water truck in? They have a water truck for events, so there's no water bottles. You just go up and get your own.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Oh.
So, because the water bottles make me crazy.
Of course
Yeah.
So anyway, so not to derail us, but I think 2 and water can be one of those.
Okay.
Yeah, I second Ed's amendment, friendly amendment to 2 non-alcoholic drinks.
Okay, so we have an amendment for the event and for the liquor license, which includes the availability of 2 non-alcoholic offerings. Any additional discussion? No? Roll call vote. Counselor Danahy?
Yes.
Counselor Santos?
Yes.
Counselor Butt?
Yes.
Counselor Chines?
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski?
Aye.
And myself, yes. Okay, so we
Thank-
have an event.
Thank you very much, and our DPW director said he's going to call the MWRA tomorrow morning for your water truck.
The water truck is pretty great, because people can bring their own water bottles.
Good.
Yeah, it's a great
He's going to make the call.
thing. Okay, we'll see. We'll see whether it's available. But I like the idea of cider as well. Okay, so we do have another liquor license. Moving on to item number 9. We have a request from Olivia Charles Pike for a one-day liquor license on January 15th at the AmeriCal Civic Center from 3 to 9 p.m. for an engagement party. And I just have to say, Sherry, I love your new system where we can see that it's been through all the approvals. So,
Yeah, isn't
Steve and
that
Sherry,
great?
that's so great.
I would second that motion. Or I would make
Yeah,
the
can you
motion.
make the motion,
I will
please?
make the
Is that
motion.
what you
Yeah.
So a motion made by Counselor Santos, second by Counselor Butt. Any discussion?
Can I just ask Steve, are events happening again?
I mean, this is really one of the first ones we've seen that have come to us, but slowly things are starting to come back there, which
So
was.
people should be, can
Masked.
start putting
Right.
in,
Yep.
people will be masked.
Yeah,
Okay.
If our policy's still in place in January,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
right now the policy goes until we lift it?
exactly.
mask
And I
policy?
don't think there was an end date on it.
No, we didn't have an end date on it, okay. That is a good question, because I don't think I don't think the library is doing events. Are they renting out rooms yet or anything?
I don't know.
Last time I asked, they weren't,
Okay,
although I think our book club is supposed to be back this month,
Okay,
so
good.
I don't know. Yeah, but January's far off, but I
Yeah.
just, so
Doing an
people,
event today?
it was outside.
Oh, okay.
People, I guess people can kind of
Yeah.
request and well,
Right.
that's great.
yeah. Exciting, a bit of normalcy. Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote to grant a one-day liquor license to Olivia Charles
I'm
Pike.
sorry, Madam Chair, do we need to vote on that?
Yes, I
Yes.
was just rereading them.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
So we're gonna
I
vote
thought you were
on-
moving on to the
No,
next thing. I
we're gonna vote
apologize.
on a one-day liquor license for Olivia Charles Pike for January 15th, 2022 at the AmeriCal Center. Counselor Danahy?
Yes.
Counselor Santos?
Yes.
Counselor Butt?
Yes.
Counselor Chines?
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski?
Aye.
And myself, yes. Okay. Approval of the regular town meeting warrant for November 6th. Was this in our pack?
It's in the
Okay.
packet. As you
Yeah.
know,
Backside of
the town council opened the warrant a few meetings ago, and it closed on, I think, on October 8th. Friday, October 8th, I think it was. And we have 9 articles for our fall town meeting, or our regular town meeting, as some call it. Really pretty run-of-the-mill. Article 1 and Article 2 are the normal articles, the town report, as well as the use of free cash to balance the budget. I will tell you that for those of you that have been on the Finance Committee, like Ed and Jonathan have, Dan, Kevin and I, Dan Sherman, Kevin and I, Kevin Gill and I, still have our different ways of looking at it, but we all agree at the end of the day. So being conservative with the use of other revenues, local receipts, we're not going to jump way up to the pre-pandemic levels, but we're inching our way there. We'd be looking for $2.5 million in free cash, and I think that would be refunded during the year anyway. So, and our free cash number is around $8 million, which is great. So we all kind of agree on that. Permanent Building Committee is looking for more money for the public safety building. We spoke a little bit about, the Northeast Voc is on the agenda. I will have more to talk about that at our next meeting, but it is on the warrant vis-a-vis where other things are going on with other communities. Library staff, we did settle their contract, with the Board of Trustees did. So those articles will be on. There's also an article at this point to reinstitute Sunday hours, which was cut out of the budget, so I think people are happy about that. Those are about $30,000 each, so they're not going to break the bank. Broadway, we talked about Broadway. I'll give you a number for that at the next meeting. That'll be around $400,000, I believe, of our money at this point to do some streetscape improvements, to also do the whatever may not be covered in the grant that we're going to get from the federal government. We might have to revisit that if that grant goes away, but that's an important issue that Councilor Dombrowski talked about. Did I? Disability, change of name.
Yeah.
There is a article by a citizen regarding a zoning change. That is actually in front of the planning board for a public hearing. I don't know what their issue is going to be with that, but we'll find out when we're there. And so that is it. Should be I always say it should be a fairly benign meeting, but you never know.
Sorry, Madam Chair. And Steve, there'll be a tent outside this year again,
Yes,
right?
again, we will have indoor and outdoor accommodations. Again, we have been working with the with WCAT and our ADA compliance officer, Bill Renault, falls under him, about having some more ADA, particularly people that can't hear well, and we may have it's not a signer, but it's a transcriber, so that may be shown on the screens as well. We're working through that. And there was an article in the paper the other day requesting, and on our website, what have you, requesting people that wanted, that needed some extra help for town meeting, and those, when they come in, we'll accommodate them as well. So there will also be a check-in table outside, so people who do not want to come inside to check in and then go back outside to stay outside don't have to come in at all, because there are some people that. So I really think we're trying to do just about everything we can, and then when we get there, we'll find out, we'll pivot if we have to do something else. So, but thank you for bringing that up.
No,
Yeah.
that, I appreciate it. I think we've all felt safe there in the past and in the 10 or inside, so I appreciate that. We'll continue that. And just a reminder that it's November 6th, and you
Yeah.
have to be a registered voter in Massachusetts to vote, and you have to.
In Wakefield.
In Wakefield. What did I say, Massachusetts?
Massachusetts.
in Wakefield, and for November 6th to be able to vote at town meeting, you have to register before October 18th, which
Right.
is Monday.
Monday,
So if
and,
you have moved, have turned 18, never registered to vote in Wakefield, please do that so you can
Right.
vote at town meeting.
Exactly.
Madam Chair, just can I just ask a quick question? Mr. Mayo, just to follow up on your comment around sort of accommodations. Would that include translation for non-English speakers?
If we are asked, we have not had requests for that yet, but that's not actually on the agenda just yet, but if someone asks, we would
Okay,
try to do what we can, yeah.
great, thank you.
So do I have a motion to approve the regular town meeting warrant for November 6th, 2021?
So moved. Second.
So moved by Counselor Santos, seconded by Vice Chair Butt. Any additional discussion? We will do a roll call vote. Counselor Danahy?
Yes.
Counselor Santos?
Yes.
Counselor Butt?
Yes.
Counselor Chines?
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski?
Aye.
And myself, yes. Okay. Tax title land, the sale of the Water Street tax title. Steve, you want to
Sure. I can.
do an overview?
Yep, exactly. You certainly have it in your packet. As the council remember, it seems like a long time ago, we had this discussion. And we did go out to bid under Mass General Law. It was in the Central Register. And this is for approximately 75 square feet of land that is a small little triangle in between a business on Water Street right now. Was a car repair place, and the river, actually the Mill River that goes through there. It is a non-biddable piece of property, so we did decide to go out to bid on this. It's tax title, so the town council has the ability to go out to bid and sell it. And we did put a caveat in there that this had to be purchased by someone, by an entity that was going to use this for a public purpose, specifically for that area, and that any conservation issues needed to be taken care of because there is, that little strip there near the river's conservation land. So we did receive, went out, advertised, we did receive one bid for $14,500, and it's for Cataldo Ambulance Service, who is in that building right now, renting that space, and that's where their base is in Wakefield. So their plan is to clean up this property, to build a new facility there for their people that stay there overnight, their ambulance in town. And, they're asking that they do this, that they get approval from Conservation Commission as part of the deal, that they get all permits they need from the town of Wakefield, and that they actually close on the other property at the same time. I think that's important for us, too. We don't want to have someone owning this little parcel of land and then having that one out there in the wind. So my suggestion is that we approve this as stated. They have filled out all the correct paperwork. They have deposited the necessary 5% that's being held in escrow, and that we have Attorney Mullen set up the closing with Cataldo Ambulance to get them in there, clean up that property, and, sends a little money in the general fund, but that's not the main thing. It's just fixing that property and having a better location and facilities for these people that are working for the Cataldo right now, because they actually are in kind of a crappy building while they're staying. And clean up that site. That site is really, that whole area seems to be cleaned up a little better, with some of the industry down there. So that would be my suggestion.
Great. So do we have a motion to sell the property to Cataldo? Then we can do discussion after.
So moved, as stated.
Okay.
Seconded.
So a motion to sell as described to Cataldo, made by Counselor Santos, seconded by Counselor Butt. Discussion? Counselor Dombrowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we should keep a couple things in mind. One of them is, Cataldo, currently, we have their contract with them currently. That's not necessarily forever. And so while it might seem like an immediate benefit to us, that can change. And so I think looking long-term, once we sell the land and the land is gone. The other piece is you have driven past that plot a number of times since we had this discussion months ago, just to kind of like take it in. And I think there is some value to having that open space there, especially where it's located. And so I don't know to what extent we can require that there be some sort of design element to whatever they're proposing that preserves at least that much, of the area. I know that this is small money, so the 14.5 we're getting shouldn't be like, driving our decision making. But I just feel like this is something where when we lose it, it's going to be gone. And I don't want to see a situation where that just gets paved over right next to the water. And I don't know what we can do to try to, collaborate with Cataldo so that they can put a better looking facility there, which I absolutely agree would improve the aesthetics of that area. But I want to be able to do that in such a way that we don't lose, that green space to the extent that I'm concerned we could. And so I don't know what sort of condition we can do relative to that. It's fine that they're going to clean up the space. It's great. And I think ultimately it'll be, an improvement, but I'm trying to envision what it looks like after they do their construction of the new facility.
Well, I do think that's in their bid, that they need to receive necessary approvals of permits from the Wakefield Concom to restore natural vegetation along the Mill River on the property, as well as capturing and treating stormwater runoff prior to discharging into the river from the property, which we contemplated in the proposal. So I think that's kind of built in there, because they won't be able to pave, that property is mainly right on the river as it goes through. So I think that'll be in there.
I guess that's my concern, because I think there are a number of different ways that you could, perhaps, address the stormwater, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the language needs to look like on that. I understand what you're saying, Steve, about making sure that they're in compliance with, stormwater, runoff and things of that nature. But it just concerns me that we could be losing green space.
Councilor Chines?
Next to the river.
Mr. Mayo, so, we do have, obviously, zoning restrictions and conservation restrictions in terms of use of land. So presumably, if they were doing something that was in violation of those, they would need to get some sort of special permit or approval from the Conservation Commission or the ZBA.
They're going to need an order of conditions from the Conservation anyway.
Yeah, so, given that, I definitely, agree, with sort of the principle, that Councilor Dombrowski raises. I just feel, I don't know that that's sort of the place of our board to put those conditions on, given that, there already are processes in place to make sure that, the land is protected and the resource of the Mill River there is protected with whatever they end up building if they do close on the property.
Yeah, I think that, in fact, the Conservation Commission actually did write a letter to us, or the conservation agent did, and basically, the lot, as it currently states, has basically been cleared to the bank of the Mill River. It's kind of crushed stone in there, and it's really devoid of almost all vegetation. So they're looking forward to a big leap forward in doing exactly what Council Dombrowski wants. So I think that is in here right now.
Councilor Danahy?
Well, that's good news. That's good news for one, and that they're going to clean up the site. And what are they doing with it? What are they going to do with the land that they're purchasing?
It actually gives them more area on the street, so they can have a better curb cut, getting their ambulances in and out of there. So it will be their ambulance base in the area.
So they're not building anything?
Oh, there is a building on site right
Yeah.
now. That building will either
That
be
is
refurbished
gonna
or
be
taken down.
refurbished,
That's not on this land. That's
No,
on
but that's
another
gonna
land.
be, they're gonna take care of that.
Yes, yeah. That
fix
whole
that
site
up.
will be much better, yeah.
Okay.
Can you achieve the same thing by giving them like a easement in perpetuity or something?
Well, it would take the same process that we'd have to go through a bidding, and the banks won't look as kindly on that for them,
Okay.
so. Nor would a buyer, frankly. They
Well,
want
and I'm just
the full
thinking the
ownership, yeah.
investment, we want them to invest in the area, but I definitely, its concerns resonate with me as
Yeah.
well. And I think I brought them up initially just
Right.
because of the proximity
I
to the
think
Mill
all
River.
those concerns are in the bid,
Okay,
frankly.
okay. Any additional discussion? All right, so we have a motion on the floor to approve this sale so the proposal to purchase would be the conditions under which we're approving this.
Yes.
Okay. Any additional discussion? All right, roll call vote. Counselor Danahy?
Yes.
Counselor Santos?
Yes.
Counselor Butt?
Yes.
Counselor Chines?
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay. All right. Is there, so the Conservation Commission is already aware of this as well?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
they
Okay, I
have
just wanted-
already looked at the site.
Okay. So we need to set a tax classification public hearing date. It's that time again.
Yes.
For November 8th, 2021.
So moved.
So moved by Counselor Chines, seconded by Counselor Santos. Any discussion on setting this date? Hearing none, roll call vote. Counselor Danahy?
Yes.
Counselor Santos?
Yes.
Counselor Butt?
Yes.
Counselor Chines?
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski?
Aye.
Myself, yes. Okay, so we have a tax classification for November 8th. We have a number of donations. Should we take these separately?
Yes, I think you should.
Okay. So the first one is a request to accept and expend donations to the Human Rights Commission in the amount of $1,035 from various donors with thanks.
So moved. Seconded.
So moved by Counselor Santos, seconded by Counselor Butt. Any discussion? I don't think it's in here. Do we just, are they coming from lots of different places or a couple? Do we know?
It was mainly cash.
Okay.
So we think it was a lot of different places.
It probably was like, I think
Yeah.
donations as they
Yeah.
were giving out things during Pride and.
Exactly, and
Okay.
things like that, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So any additional discussion? Roll call vote, Counselor Danahy?
Yes.
Counselor Santos?
Yes.
Counselor Butt?
Yes.
Counselor Chines?
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski?
Aye.
Myself, yes. Okay. And we have a request to accept and expend donations to the town of Wakefield in the amount of $30,000 as referenced within the special permit dated 8/14/19. Condition 21, to improve the traffic conditions and other infrastructure in the project area of Grayson Lofts at Wakefield Station, 168 Albion Street from Wakefield Apartments. With thanks.
So moved. Seconded.
Moved by Counselor Santos, seconded by Counselor Butt. Is there any this is a pretty big donation.
Yeah, this was part of their approval process, was a condition of the Board of Appeals, and they got
Okay.
approved. So,
And the expenditure is done by all town approval, right? In
No,
town?
this will be done by DPW.
This is
to
be
do
done
it,
by
so,
our own people,
yeah.
okay. Okay, Counselor Chines?
Mr. Mayor, and can you just speak really briefly about sort of what the specific improvements were that these funds were intended for?
In order to improve the traffic conditions and other infrastructure in the project area for $30,000. And I think it is looking at that, there's a lot of other things they're gonna do too, like they're gonna do the sidewalk and stuff like that. But I think in that whole kind of Foundry, Lake, Gould area, we're trying to you drive through it every day, some of you.
Yep.
It's a very strange intersection, so
Yeah,
trying
it's a hard-
to do a little bit
yeah.
better job there.
So is this sort of a study to look at the design for?
I think it's,
or-
I think we've done a lot of the studying on it. I think this is try to start to implement some of that.
Okay.
But maybe they'll text me if I'm wrong. No.
Okay. So we have the motion to accept the $30,000 donation. Counselor Danahy?
Yes.
Counselor Santos?
Yes.
Counselor Butt?
Yes.
Counselor Chines?
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski?
Aye.
Myself, yes. Okay. Item number 14, announcements.
13C.
No.
Oh, Oh, sorry, walked right over the library, sorry. Request to accept and expend a donation to the library in the amount of $592 from various donors with thanks.
So moved. Seconded.
Moved by Counselor Santos, second by Counselor Butt. Any discussion? Hearing none. Counselor Danny?
Yes.
Counselor Santos?
Yes.
Counselor Butt?
Yes.
Counselor Chines?
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski?
I
And myself, yes, with thanks. Okay, now on to announcements. Who would like to start us off? Nobody has any announcements. Counselor Chines.
Just a couple of things. First of all, a lot going on this weekend, which is great. In addition to the farmers market and the flu clinic at the farmers market, which absolutely encourage people to go and get their flu shot if they haven't already. The WAVE 5K to end domestic violence is this Saturday morning as well at 9 a.m. Great event for a great cause. Hopefully the weather will be nice as well. So encourage people to come out for that. I believe that they are still taking registrations for folks who want to walk or run, and I think will be until that morning. So hope to see a great crowd there. Also this Saturday night, I think the last opportunity for the season to see the high school marching band on their home field at Landrigan. So hope people can come out to that. Finally, just wanted to mention the Chamber of Commerce is having their annual meeting next week, Tuesday the 19th from 5:30 to 8:30 at Prince Pizza, not in Wakefield, which maybe is something we can encourage them to look at next year, but certainly a great opportunity to hear about the great work that they're doing to support local businesses here in Wakefield.
Anybody else? I noticed in the Chamber's newsletter too, they are still doing the Saturday shopping every other week. And so you can still spend $50 in town and get a $10 gift card, which didn't realize after spending much money at Sweet Bay recently. So people should be aware of that for the shopping Saturdays.
Absolutely.
Counselor Butt?
Just to echo everything that Jonathan said, but also remind you, we have a housing forum coming up on the 20th, I believe, at 7 p.m. virtual. So more information on our website about that, but it should be a really interesting forum. Aaron and others have worked on that a lot. We just did a donation to the Human Rights Commission, and I just wanted to give the group some congratulations. They put on a great event that overlapped with our meeting, but I went there before coming to the meeting to celebrate Hispanic heritage, and it was outside of the library. Live singers and dancers, and there was a big crowd of all ages, really, engaged crowd. And as Aaron and Steve, as you think about kind of doing these pop-ups, I just want to, I've said this for a little while, but the library and jazz at the library and, maybe getting some bocce courts next year and closing off that part of Main Street. It just was such a great experience. So I just want to congratulate the library and the Human Rights Commission for that event. And speaking of the library, I just want to say congratulations and happy retirement to Jeff Clapes, who we all know has served on a lot of our boards, super volunteer, who's today was his last day. So tomorrow's his first day of retirement, but wish Jeff all the best, who usually is on our meetings, usually watches our meetings virtually. So yes, that's it.
Awesome. Counselor Dombrowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to remind everyone that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and it's a really important reminder for all of us about the role that we can play to help, those who may be in need. And you can go to waveonline.org, WAVonline.org, and there's a whole resources tab there, and it brings you to a number of really tremendous resources that we have available in our community. You can also go there and register for the Racing to End Domestic Violence race, which Jonathan had mentioned is this Saturday. But it's a really important month, and it's all that we can do is going to be making all the difference. Obviously, we should be aware every month of friends and neighbors that might need our help, but this month especially just shines a brighter light onto it. So, again, waveonline.org. Thanks.
And they have a new website. It looks very nice.
Yeah, it was a great effort, and it was a local company doing it too.
Yeah, Counselor Santos?
I have two, not so much announcements, but questions. In addition to next week, we have the tri-board meeting on
Yes.
Thursday.
Yes.
Is that in person or on Zoom? Have we determined that?
I think it's in person with Zoom.
me,
The tri-board.
Tri-board is Zoom.
Oh, it's all Zoom?
Webinar, yes.
Oh, it is.
Oh,
It is
okay.
all- yeah.
I was mistaken. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank God I'm not chair for that one.
Yeah.
It's hard to,
You sure you don't want to be? If
no,
my plane is late coming in, you might.
It's gotta be
you
easy.
might be.
don't worry.
to herd cats for that many people. And my second one is probably a throw to Tom. Tom, we heard a gentleman in the beginning of the meeting that broke my heart on so many levels, but I think it wasn't explained. And I'm not talking about his case in particular, but I think it's important for people to understand that, we're not, just what the policy is, because it really is, it's sad what
Yeah.
happened.
Yes, I was concerned that while I know everybody on the council understands what the policy is in Wakefield, I don't want those viewing at home to be misled.
Exactly.
There is no vaccine mandate in Wakefield. The rule for Wakefield employees, which is a rule that's being adopted by OSHA for all employers of 100 people or more, is that you either get vaccinated, or if you choose not to for whatever reason, you submit a weekly negative test result to your employer. And the town would actually even pay for the cost of the testing. People should not be misled into thinking that the town of Wakefield ignores sincerely held religious objections. Quite the contrary. There is an escape hatch here, and only if an employee refuses both alternatives does he run into the kind of insubordination that must lead to termination.
Well, thank you, Tom, for clarifying that. That was important.
Thanks for bringing that up, Ann. That's important. Counselor Danahy?
Well, as a Greenwood resident, I want to thank the DPW for the improvements in Greenwood and the cutouts and hopefully we'll have somebody adopt that site to maintain it. So
That does help, yeah.
that does help. So so we can keep it maintained. So anybody who would like to volunteer, so any local businesses.
All right, anything else? I think tomorrow's the deadline for the master plan committee applications.
Yes, deadline for important to apply because it is your opportunity to have a role in what you would like to see the future of Wakefield. So it's a good opportunity to have a voice at the table.
And I think the last I saw, there were quite a few, probably about 30
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a lot of
applications
interest.
of a lot of different backgrounds, which is great.
All right, great. Any matters not, I skipped over Steve, and did anybody else have anything?
No, everything was covered.
Any matters not anticipated for the agenda? No? I'll take a motion to adjourn then.
So moved. Seconded.
Great. So we will reconvene as just the council on October 25th, and then we have tri-board remotely on Thursday, October 21st. So roll call vote to adjourn. Counselor Danahy?
Yes.
Counselor Santos?
Yes.
Counselor Butt?
Yes.
Counselor Chines?
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski?
I
Always a joker. And myself,
I
yes.
enjoyed the company.
All right. Thank you, Wakefield, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.